On your phone or your laptop, I bet there is something you use every single day that you have never paid a cent for and never once wondered why someone went to the trouble of building it for you for free. And if I were to push you on it, you would probably tell me you already know why companies give things away, and that even if it isn't about pure generosity, as long as you come out a winner either way, who cares? But hold on right there, because that belief is about to cost you. The thing you're using for free and the reason it exists at all has almost nothing to do with generosity. Today we're talking about a strategy called Commoditize Your Compliments popularized by Joe Spolsky. A bit of context first. Some products only ever get used together. Think of a printer and ink, a games console and the games that makes it worth owning, a coffee machine and the capsules. In every one of those pairs, there is the thing you're selling, and there is a second thing that customer needs alongside it to get the full experience. That second thing has a name. It's called the compliment. The idea behind it is simple. When the complement gets cheaper, people tend to buy more of the thing it pairs with. So, some companies do something that at first glance looks like a mistake. Instead of charging for the compliment, they cut its price toward zero on purpose. And some go even further and pay to give it away, funding it, open sourcing it, flooding the market with it for free. Because every dollar a customer doesn't spend on the compliment is a dollar freed up that could increase demand for whatever you actually sell and shift bargaining power. You're not just trying to beat your rivals by being cheaper, better, or faster in your own market. Instead, you're reaching into the market right next door and collapsing it, or better to say, pushing that market toward commodity pricing, so the money that used to get spent there comes flowing toward you instead. Now, a bit more on how it works in practice. But before that, welcome back to Applied Stuff. My name is Lilia, and this is the place where ideas meet practical application. And if you get value from this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. It helps a lot. Thank you, really. Back to the topic. When a company hands you something valuable for nothing, the first explanation you reach for is usually some flavor of generosity with an angle. Either they're being nice because nice builds goodwill, or they're buying your attention now to sell you something later. And sure, those stories can be true, but more often they're just comfortable, because getting something for free trips a sense of having won. Yeah, that little flicker of warmth that stops you from asking the next question about what is this free thing is actually for. So let's ask it. Why would anyone spend real money making someone else's product cheap? And the answer is people most often don't want the gadget for its own sake. What they want is to be able to do the thing it is for. Customers aren't weighing the two halves separately. They're weighing the whole bill, the total cost of being able to do the thing, and there's only ever so much they're willing to spend on the whole package. So, when one half of the package suddenly drops to nothing, the budget doesn't shrink along with it. The money that would have gone to the free half is still sitting in the customer's pocket, and it can slide over to the half that's still worth paying for. And the reason a company would set out to make that happen comes down to a simple fact about where money can actually sit. Money only rests where there is something genuinely worth paying for, something the customer can't easily get somewhere else. And anything that is everywhere, that any competitor can supply just as well, tends to drift toward costing almost nothing, or better say drift toward commodity margins. Because the moment you try to charge for it, the shop next door offers it cheaper, and soon enough someone offers it free. Profit almost never settles in the layer that's easy to copy. It pulls in the layer that's hard to copy, the one with a brand people trust, or a patent, or a standard nobody can build around. So, when the company drives the complement to zero, it isn't being generous and it isn't really losing anything either. It's moving where the profit lands. It floods the layer it can't defend, draining the margin out of it, so that the customer's whole willingness to pay piles up on the one layer it can't defend, the layer it happens to own. Let me simplify this a bit. Say you sell lemonade and you notice that nobody drinks lemonade without a glass, and glasses cost money. And honestly, the price of the glass is half the reason a thirsty person hesitates on a hot afternoon whether to buy from you or not. So, you include the glass free with every lemonade. To everyone walking past, you are either the most generous soul on the street or the worst businessman on it. But generosity was never the plan, and you're not actually losing money. Because once the glass costs nothing, the only thing left for a thirsty person to spend on is the lemonade. Your lemonade. With no glass competing for their coins, if the bet works, you can charge a little more per glass and sell a lot more glasses. And the few cents you eat on every glass come back to you many times over. Without anyone noticing, you've turned the question in the customer head from, do I spend on a glass and a drink? Into simply, which lemonade? You turn your lemonade into a no-brainer on a hot afternoon by lifting the glass out of the equation. Now, a quick detour Because the moment you start noticing various offers companies put in front of you, you'll run into two famous tricks that look like cousins of this one, but they're not. Picture the popcorn counter at the cinema: small, medium, and large. The first trick is the compromise effect. The small is made deliberately too small, and the large on the opposite feels like more than any human could ever finish. And so you reach for the medium option. And if the medium was the size they wanted to sell you all along, the other two just did the persuading for free. The second trick is the decoy. There are more traditional examples to show this trick of more clean, but they would pull us off into another topic, so I will explain it with popcorn too. Here we want the medium option to be priced on purpose to be the worst deal on the board. Basically, almost as much as the large option for noticeably less popcorn. Nobody's meant to buy it, it sits there for a reason, to make the large popcorn look like a bargain. For a few cents more than the medium, you get the top twice the size. So the large becomes the obvious choice, which conveniently is the version the counter could make the most money on. Now, neither of those tricks is the move we are talking about today. Both tricks happen inside a single product. They just rearrange how three versions of the same popcorn look standing next to each other, and they nudge you toward the version with the fattest margin. Nothing leaves the popcorn. Whereas commoditizing your complement does something entirely different. The popcorn tricks are pricing decisions you can make on Tuesday and reverse on Wednesday, run by anyone with a menu and a marker. While commoditizing your complement is a structural bet, the kind you place once and can't easily take back. Which brings us to the caveats. Most often, commoditizing your compliments doesn't work unless you genuinely own the valuable layer. Unless there is a part of the package you control and can defend, let's say a brand people trust, or a network that gets stronger every time someone new joins, or a patent or standard you set, or some capability your competitors can't simply copy the morning they see it work. Get that part right, and the giveaway becomes your tool. Get it wrong, flatten the compliment while the thing you actually sell is just as easy to copy, and congratulations! You spend a fortune making the entire category cheaper for everyone and your rivals included, handing them the exact demand you were trying to capture and paying for the privilege. And there is a second trap underneath the first. Once you've told the whole market that something is free, you almost never get to start charging for it again. So, if you flatten the wrong layer or flatten it before you've locked down the one you meant to keep, there is no easy do over. You lower the price of an entire category, and you would better be standing on the part that's still worth money. And if that all sounds abstract, here's how much real money has been made doing precisely this. Back in 2001, IBM poured around $1 billion into Linux, a free open source operating system. It funded the development, put Linux across its service, even ran full page newspaper ads for it. The point wasn't to make money by selling Linux licenses. The point was to make Linux strong enough that IBM could sell more what surrounded it. I'm referring to servers, software, support, and consulting and DDoM. And Google ran a similar play with Android. It handed the phone operating system away for free and open source, so that manufacturers could build phones without paying an operating system license fee. Now, add to that the Google's real business is search and advertising. The free license starts to make the whole sense. Because the cheaper and more accessible smartphones got, the more of their lives people started to spend online. Searching, watching, tapping, pouring their attention straight into the layer Google kept for itself. But attention, please. Because I just handed you two winners, two examples that did work. But there are others. For every IBM and Google, there are plenty of companies that try some version of this and give away the wrong half, spend its own money making the whole category cheaper for its competitors, and went broke doing it. And unfortunately, we don't tend to hear those stories. This doesn't mean the strategy doesn't work. It just means be careful and use it in the right place and at the right time. Also, there is another point I must mention. Not every free thing on your phone is a compliment. Plenty of things are free because you are the product. Think of your attention, your data. Plenty more are free to hook you now and charge you later. Pretty much a free sample with extra steps. Commoditizing your compliment is neither of those. Which means, is it free? Was never the right question. Free is everywhere for 100 different reasons. I would like you to ask yourself an uncomfortable question instead. Whether the thing you make, the thing you sell, is somebody else's compliment. Because if it is, if what you do turns out to be the glass and not the lemonade, the ink and not the printer, the layer that looks valuable today but would be easy for someone bigger to flatten tomorrow, then the day they decide to drive your price to zero, you're out. The good news, however, is that once you understand the strategy, you can do two things that almost nobody does. You can see the move coming when it's aimed at you, and guard the one part of what you do that's genuinely hard to copy. Instead of waking up one morning to find your life's work turned into someone else's free sample. And if you're ever the one building, you could look at this from a different angle. What is the expensive, annoying thing sitting next to my product that I could make free? So the money stops piling up there and starts flowing to me. Free is almost never the whole story. Free is the tool. And if you found this episode useful, I would appreciate you subscribing. Also, you will find my socials in the description in case you would like to connect or support this channel. It really means a lot to me. Thank you so much for being here. See you in the next one. And until then, think deeper and act smarter. Bye bye! A quick disclaimer: the content presented on this channel is provided strictly for discussion purposes. Nothing presented should be interpreted as legal, financial, economic, or any professional advice. By consuming this content, you acknowledge that you remain fully responsible for your own decisions. I disclaim any liability for outcomes resulting from the use or interpretation of the information presented. The information may contain errors or omissions and is provided without warranty of accuracy or completeness.